I'm going to tell this bird to shut up. It's a good use of tell. Hello everybody, and in this video we are going to talk about the differences between tell and say, and we are specifically going to learn the different structures that you have to use with tell and the different grammatical structures that you have to use with say. So, are you ready? Let's do it. For this video, we're going to imagine a scenario. Let's say that you go to your favorite store, and at your favorite store there is a sign on the door that says this: Dear customers, unfortunately the store will be closing on January 1st, 2023. Thank you for your continued support. We are going to learn in this video how to talk about this situation using say and tell. So what would you say if you wanted to tell someone about this specific circumstance? How could we inform someone else about this situation using the verb tell? Well, one way we can do it is with the following sentence. We can say something like, the store owner told his customers about the closing. Let's break this sentence down into parts so we can see the structure of it. So first, in this light yellow color, we have the person who is speaking, the person who is doing the action of telling. Then, after that, we have the verb itself. We have the verb tell. Immediately after tell, we have the audience, the person who is listening or the person who is supposed to be listening. After that, we have the preposition about. And then lastly, we have the thing itself that is being communicated. In this case, it is the closing. Now, if we look at the grammatical parts of this sentence, we have first the subject, which is always a noun. We have the verb, which is tell here. We have an indirect object, which is also always a noun. We have a preposition about, and then finally we have a direct object, which is also always a noun. Now, don't panic. You don't necessarily need to know these grammatical parts in order to use this structure. However, if you are familiar with these grammatical parts, this might make it a little bit easier for you. But all you really need to know is that the person speaking, the person doing the action of telling, is what comes first. It is followed by the verb tell, and then immediately after tell, we have the person who is listening or the audience. Finally, we have this about something, about whatever is being discussed here is what needs to follow about. So let's change it up a little bit. What if instead of his customers, we wanted to say that the store owner, his employees, the closing? How can we structure this sentence? Great. We would say the store owner told his employees about the closing. So you can see with this structure, you can kind of play with it a little bit depending on who's talking and who the audience is. And of course, what you're talking about. The second way we can describe the same situation using tell is by saying this. The store owner told his customers that the store is closing. Let's break this sentence down. So, like the first thing we have is the person who is speaking. Next, we have the verb tell, and then we have the audience, and then we have that, which is optional. It's in parentheses. Sometimes people say it and sometimes they don't. And finally, we have a full sentence of the thing that needs to be communicated. So we have the store owner is the person speaking. We have the verb tell. We have the person listening or the audience, which is his customers. We have that. And lastly, we have the store is closing. Again, we can categorize these things into their grammatical parts, like a subject, an indirect object, or a full sentence. However, it's not necessary in order to use this structure correctly. Let's play with this. So instead of his customers, let's say he wants to tell his employees. How would this sentence change in this case? Good. So in this case, it would be the store owner told his employees that the store is closing. Now, again, you can play with this in many different ways. Maybe it's not the store owner who's doing the speaking, but maybe it's I. So it would be I told my employees that the store is closing. Or maybe I am the speaker and my friend is the audience. In that case, it would be I told my friend that the store is closing. One thing we can do with tell that we can't do with say is to give demands or orders or make requests. So for example, we could say something like, "That is one loud bird. Excuse you. I'm going to tell this bird to shut up." It's a good use of tell. Anyway, the store owner told his employees to find a new job. Now, if we look at the structure of this sentence with the command, we see that we have the person giving the command or making the request. We have the verb tell. We have the person who is meant to receive the demand or the request, and the demand or request itself at the end. And grammatically, that looks something like the subject, right? The subject is the person who does the verb, so he's doing the telling. There's the person that receives the telling, which is the indirect object or noun. And finally, we have the demand or request, which is always written in the infinitive form, which is the to plus a verb. So for example, to find or to stop or to continue. So let's say that the store owner wanted to tell his employees that they had to clean the store. He's giving them the command or the request of cleaning the store. How would this look? Good. We could say the store owner told his employees to clean the store. Now, again, you can play with this. If you change the subject to I, if I change the audience or the receiver to, I don't know, my brother, and I change the request to stop playing your music so loudly, I can say something like, I told my brother to stop playing his music so loudly. All right, so let's summarize tell a little bit. In general, we use tell to talk about things that are a little bit more general or the general idea of something. So I told him about the closing. For example, I'm not telling you everything he said. I'm just giving you a general idea of what he said. And we can also use tell to give orders like we just saw. Orders or commands or requests. As you will see, tell is a lot more flexible than say. In the next section, we will look at how to use say and why we use say, and we can't use it exactly the same way as tell. Tell is, again, more flexible. So let's look at say. Okay, how can we talk about this same situation about the store closing using say? Well, one thing that we can say is that the store owner said that, again, that is optional, that's why it's in parentheses, the store is closing. The store owner said the store is closing. Let's take a look at the structure of this sentence. So we have in the yellow, we have the person speaking. In the darker blue, we have the verb say. In the lighter blue, we have the optional that. And in the dark gray, we have a full sentence. So in other words, the store owner is the person speaking. We have the verb say, we have the optional that, and the full sentence is the store is closing. Grammatically, the yellow would be the subject or the noun. We have the verb, which is say. We have that, and then we have a full sentence, a full clause, which is technically functioning as a noun here, but you don't have to worry about that. Another way we can use say to describe this situation is by saying the store owner said the store is closing. Now, this setup is really only for writing because you can't really speak this type of punctuation, but I will show you how it works anyway. So again, we have the person in light yellow, that's the speaking person. We have the verb. We have a comma here in orange. We have our first quotation mark or an opening quotation mark. We have a full sentence, and then we have a closing quotation mark. Now you might notice that some information is missing in these sentences. For example, when we use tell, we could say the store owner told his customers blah, blah, blah. But here with said, we don't have this information in these sentences. We're not telling you who this information was given to or who it was said to. If you want to include this information in your sentence using say, you absolutely need to use to in order to do that. What do I mean? Well, let's take a look. Let's say we have this sentence. The store owner said that the store is closing. So what if I wanted to include who he said this to? How can I phrase that? So we can either say the store owner said to his customers that the store is closing, or we say the store owner said that the store is closing to his customers. So to the receiver of the information either needs to come at the very end of the sentence or it has to come immediately after the verb say. Let's take a look at another example. So in this case, the store owner said the store is closing. It works very similarly. We have to either say the store owner said, comma, the store is closing to his customers, or the store owner said to his customers, the store is closing. Again, this last example is really only for writing purposes, but it just shows you here that you absolutely need to use to if you want to show the person who the information is giving to when using the verb say. To summarize a little bit, when we are using say, in general, we're normally referring to something more specific, like exact words, which is why we use quotation marks. Say is much less flexible than tell, meaning that if you want to include who the speaker is talking to, you need to use to. You absolutely need to use to. Let's say you want to take the sentence, I told him the store was closing, but you don't want to use the verb tell, you want to use the verb say. A really common mistake that a lot of students will make is that they will say something like, I said him the store was closing, which is wrong. We can't do this because we need to have to here if we're using the verb say. There's only two ways that we can really rephrase this. We can say, I said to him that the store was closing, or I said that the store was closing to him. Okay, that's a lot of information, so let's see what you remember and let's do some practice problems. I'm going to give you a sentence with a blank in it, and I want you to tell me whether it's say or tell that belongs in the sentence. Ready? Let's do it. Number 1, me to hurry up. Feel free to pause the video if you need to, otherwise just hang on and I will give you the answer in just a second. So take your time and see what you think for number 1. Okay, so what did you come up with? It's tell. Very good. She told me to hurry up. And why is it tell? Well, because this person is giving an order or a command or a suggestion. So in this case, we know that we need to use tell. Ready for the next one? Number 2, the teacher that we had homework. Great, it is say. We need say here. The teacher said that we had homework. Why does it say? Well, this original sentence doesn't mention a receiver of the information, so that is a very good indication or a good clue that we need say and not tell. 3. My mom always, an apple a day keeps the doctor away. Good. This one is also say because we have a direct quote here. Because we're using someone's exact words, we are going to use say in this example. Okay, 4. The doctor, his patient, that he could return to work. Yes, it's tell. And why is it tell? Because we have the receiver of the information right after the verb. So we know then it absolutely has to be tell. The doctor told his patient that he could return to work. Okay, last one. The doctor blank to me that I could return to work. It's a little bit tricky. Good, it's say. And why is it say, you might ask? Because we have the person right after the verb, but we don't actually have the person right after the verb. We have to right after the verb. And because we have to, we know that it must be say, because say needs to when you're going to give the information about who is listening. All right, a lot of information in this video, but it's very practical, useful information, and it's pretty commonly used, so it's worth reviewing and studying to make sure you really understand it. In this video, we covered the differences between tell and say. Specifically, we reviewed the different grammatical structures that you need when you're using tell and the grammatical structures that you need when you're using say. And if you just want a little bit more practice, leave me a comment and answer these 2 questions in the comments. The first one is, when was the last time someone told you to do something? Maybe someone told you to do something that you didn't want to do, or maybe somebody gave you a good suggestion. What did they tell you to do? And the second question is, what is something that your parents or your teachers used to say when you were younger? And did you listen to them? For example, my mom used to say to me when I was making a funny face, or not really making a funny face, if I made an upset face when I was a kid like this, my mom would say, your face is going to get stuck that way if you don't stop. So it doesn't really make sense, but it's just something that she used to say. Did your parents or your teachers used to say anything like that to you when you were a kid? Let me know in the comments. Anyway, I hope you liked this video and that it was useful for you. And in the next one, we will be covering the difference between speak and talk. So stay tuned and I will see you then. Bye, everybody.